Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. Professor Miriam Corbett, an expert in chronomancy, the arcane study of time, arrived in Gearsin one overcast morning. She'd heard rumors of the town's temporal anomalies and hoped to uncover their source. Her first taste of Gearsin's clockwork cacophony came at the station. The platform clock read 9:17 as her pocket watch ticked 9:43. The arrival bell sang twice in quick succession, then fell silent. Local customs confounded her further. Merchants opened before the seventh toll. The baker's bread was ready 3 chimes after sunrise, and the town council met at the hour that never is. Miriam's meticulously calibrated instruments registered wildly fluctuating readings. Her guide, Mayor Thaddeus Quill, greeted her with a grin as crooked as the town clocks. "Welcome to Gearsin, Professor. Punctuality is relative here. Our clocks are wrong, always were, but the town thrives all the same." Miriam spent days mapping every public clock: tower, square, chapel, watermill, even the abandoned clockwork gargoyle atop the town hall. She noted patterns. One morning drift. Between sunrise and midday, clocks advance faster than real time. Noon stall. From 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., time froze. Bells ceased. Afternoon. Slip. From 1 p.m. to sunset, clocks lag behind. Evening. Shuffle. After dusk, time jumped unpredictably. At night, she found an underground chamber beneath the clockmaker's shop. There lay the ancient grand regulator, a massive mechanism of bronze gears and crystalline conduits, long since fallen silent. Strange runes glowed faintly on its surface. Clockmaker Alden Brack, aged and gaunt. "We found it buried during the Great Fire years ago. Ever since, our clocks have been confused. We keep them running out of habit, but no one dares fix the regulator." Miriam's heart raced. The regulator was the town's temporal heart. If she could restore it, perhaps Gearsin's clocks, and time itself, could be set right. Over weeks, Miriam and Alden labored in secret below the shop. She cleaned dust-clogged gears, inscribed counter runes to stabilize the flow, and channeled ley line energy through the crystal conduits. As the grand regulator whirred awake, time in the chamber resumed at normal pace. Candles melted, a pendulum swung true. Miriam exhaled relief until the ground trembled and an otherworldly chime echoed through the vault. Echoing chorus, "Time is not yours to command." The runes flared as if alive. Miriam staggered back as the regulator's hum warped. The gears spun backward, forward, then stilled. She realized too late, the regulator had been suppressing a temporal rift beneath Gearsin, a wound in the fabric of time. By reigniting it, she had unleashed the very anomaly she sought to cure. Gearsin outside reeled into chaos. Clocks everywhere leapt into spasm. Church bells rang backward. Watches spun like whirlpools. Sundials cast no shadow. Villagers stumbled through blurred moments. Margaret the baker repeated her opening bell 5 times, then none. Children found lessons erased from memory. Lovers met and forgot each other's names. Miriam confronted Mayor Quill in the square. "Miriam, I was wrong to meddle. I've undone your uneasy balance." Quill, grimly. "Balance? We live by mistakes. Now time flees us entirely." He gestured to the swirling rift at the square's center, a mirror of shimmering distortion swallowing cobblestones. Through it, fleeting glimpses of Gearsin at other ages, burning in fire, building its clocks, Empty fields waiting for settlement. Faced with unraveling time, Miriam and Quill realized that the Grand Regulator's rigidity had masked the rift, but the town's very spirit had woven it into daily life. The people of Garrison had adapted, forging meaning from shifting hours. Now to survive, they must embrace the rift, not fight it. Miriam proposed a radical plan, ritualistic synchronization. Each household would choose a personal tempo, some living slow, others swift, and the town would function as a temporal tapestry. The regulator would be reconfigured not to force uniform time, but to harmonize dissonant threads. Under midsummer's moon, villagers gathered in the square, carrying personal timepieces, watches, sundials, singing bowls set to different rhythms. Miriam chanted counter runes as Alden guided hands on the regulator's wheels. The rift's churning light softened, weaving into a prism of colored strands above the square. As dawn broke, Gearson awoke not to a single hour, but to many. The market operated on quarter-hour measure, 15 minutes per trade cycle. The school day divided into rings of scholarly bell, 7 minutes per lesson. The forge hammered in beat time, 3 seconds per strike. Each clock now ran at its chosen pace, yet the Grand Regulator wove their energies into a living mosaic, ensuring that temporal dissonance did not fracture the town, but enriched its rhythm. Miriam watched giants in uneven applause. Some villagers raced to harvest, others strolled in unhurried reflection. The morning's mismatched bells and whistles felt celebratory rather than jarring. Gearson had not banished the rift, it had mastered it. Years later, Professor Miriam Corbett remained Gearson's honored chronologist. Her papers on temporal plurality reshaped theories of time's nature. Tourists arrived not to marvel at a single clock, but to experience the polyphony of hours. In the market square, the Grand Regulator stands open, a living sculpture of bronze and crystal. Visitors hear its gentle hum as each villager's personal clock ticks in concert. At dusk, when the radiant sun sinks behind pine ridges, the regulator's prism casts shifting rainbows into the mist, reminding all that time, like life, need not march in lockstep, but can flow in many currents, each pulse as true as the last. And so Gearson endures, a town where the clocks are always wrong, and yet, in their glorious disarray, they are perfectly, wondrously right. Dr. Roland Pierce was a professor of anthropology who had long chased legends of the Veil World, the realm said to lie just beyond human sight, brimming with wonders and horrors. When he glimpsed the ivory mask in the curio's lantern light, his pulse quickened. He bargained through dawn's hush, trading his research notes and a silver compass for the mask's velvet box. That evening in his study, Roland examined the mask beneath lamplight. The spiraled horns seemed to breathe. He traced the filigree vines, inscriptions in a dialect he recognized from half-deciphered tablets. Through me you pass. A tremor of both dread and desire seized him. With a scholar's trembling hand, Roland lifted the mask and placed it upon his face. At first, the mirror reflected only the lamplit study. Then the glass fogged Roland's own breath. But the reflection shifted. The bookshelves crumbled into vapor, the desk blurred into mist. He jerked the mask away. The room snapped back. Heart pounding, he set the mask aside. Yet even as he poured a nerving dram of brandy, the image of endless stars and alien towers haunted the glass. He dared again, slipping the mask smoothly over his face. This time, when he looked into the mirror, it was no longer his study, but a city of gleaming obsidian spires under a violet sky where 2 moons hung like watchful eyes. Terraced gardens of crystal bloomed between the towers, and rivers of mercury gleamed below. A silent throng of figures, robed in shifting shadows, lined the streets, their faces concealed, yet Roland felt them turn his way. As he watched, transfixed, The mirror's surface rippled. One figure pressed a skeletal hand to the glass from the other side. Their eyes, two pools of starlight, met his. A pulse of longing echoed through Roland's chest, the masked promise of passage. He gasped for breath, abruptly yanking the mask free. The study returned, silent and still. But Roland's mind raced. The mask was a portal, a bridge between worlds. He resolved to return. Each night, Roland donned the mask and crossed into the other world, Veil Realm as he dubbed it. He mapped its streets, cataloged its creatures, gleaned its history from ancient glyphs carved into its monolithic towers. The Shadowed Ones, as he came to call the robed figures, welcomed his visitorship with cryptic bows and gestures. They spoke no words, yet Roland felt their telepathic thoughts: curiosity, amusement, approval. But with each crossing, his sense of home frayed. The study's smell of wood smoke gave way to the chill of alien winds. Books lost their words, replaced by echoes of the Veil Realm's silent lexicon. He scribbled frantic notes, but found them illegible by candlelight. The mask bound him tighter with every use. One dawn, Roland awoke unable to recall his own name. Only the whisper of two moons and crystal gardens. Panic crowned his mind. He stumbled to the mirror, mask in trembling hand. The reflection of his study was gone, replaced by the Violet City. His heart sank. The mask had severed his tie to his world. Desperate, Roland researched the mask's origin in the few surviving notes he could still read. He learned of the Twilight Ritual, a ceremony the mask's original wearer used to break the bond. It required 3 tokens, one from each realm: a shard of obsidian glass from a Veil Realm spire, a sprig of midnight rose from the Veil Realm's hanging gardens, and a flame-kindled spark from his own world's hearth. Armed with this tenuous hope, Roland donned the mask one last time. He traversed Veil Realm swiftly, gathering the obsidian shard and the midnight rose's bloom. At the Mirror Plaza, he whispered the ritual's incantation in the Veil Realm's silent tongue. The Shadowed Ones formed a circle, stretching hands toward him, but offering no aid. As he completed the words, the mask glowed with cold fire, its horns lighting like ghostly lanterns. He tore the mask away and lighted a brand new candle on his hearth with trembling flint. He caught a spark in his cupped hands, then pressed the brand to the rose's petals into the obsidian shard. The shard cracked, the rose froze into crystalline stillness, and the spark flared azure. He pressed both to the mask's back. The candle's flame and the shard's fracture rippled through the mask's filigree. In a pulse of silver light, the mask shattered. Roland fell back as if released from a vice. The Violet City vanished from the mirror. His study's warm glow returned. In the weeks that followed, Roland restored his life. The Veil Realm receded to memory, vivid yet sealed beyond recall. He published an account of the mask's perils and powers, cautioning scholars of hidden worlds. The mask's remnants, filigree vines and horn shards, he sealed in an iron box and buried beneath the university's roots. But rumors spread of the Veil Realm's wonders. A secret society of ambitious occultists exhumed the shards and reforged the mask in hushed workshops. Their leader, a desperate collector, believed he could master the mask's power where Roland had failed. Under a moonless sky, they donned the mask once more, only to vanish without trace, their screams echoing into the other world, where they had become new inhabitants of silent shadow. In Everwood's Hall of Curiosities, Roland's iron-bound box rests forever locked behind glass. The shards glimmer faintly, warning shards of impossible power. Beneath it, a plaque reads, "The Mask of Otherworld's Grasp, broken by sacrifice, yet its echoes endure where curiosity climbs beyond midnight's veil." Scholars and dreamers pass before it, eyes lowered. Some swear that at the stroke of midnight, the shards whisper with moonlight's breath, and if you listen closely, you may hear the faintest voice drifting from beyond the mirror's frame. Come, cross, stay. And in that moment, you remember that some masks bind worlds, and some worlds bind souls beyond the grasp of dawn. Selena's journey began under an iron sky. Snow swirled across the forest floor, obliterating tracks. In her pack lay one treasured item, the family locket her brother Finn had given her, now faded with fever's weight. He lay at home in Hearthholm, shivering beneath furs, his breath ragged. Every healer's remedy had failed. Only the frost flame's promise of revealing hidden cures remained a glimmer of hope. For days, Selena followed half-remembered tales. The ice weaver's hut beyond the northern glade, the abandoned chapel at the lake's edge, a fractured shrine in the whispering woods. Each clue led deeper into white oblivion, where pines groaned under heavy snow and wildlife fled her passing. At dusk on the fourth night, she discovered a frozen well beneath a rotting yew. Carved into its rim was a single rune. Beneath it, the water lay glass still, reflecting her candle's wan glow. She dropped a copper coin. It sank slowly, her breath held, then with a splash surfaced at her feet. Beneath the ice's surface flickered sapphire light. Selena knelt and pressed her palm to the frost. The rune glowed, a signal. She whispered a plea to the ice weaver's spirit. "Show me the way." A shard of ice cracked in the well's center, forming steps of glowing frost upward toward the sky. She climbed. At the top, the snow cleared to reveal a small hovel of birch logs and lodestone stones, its roof bowed by snow. Smoke curled from its chimney in thin, silvery plumes. Selena knocked. The door creaked open to reveal a woman cloaked in white furs. Her hair was spun like icicles. Her eyes gleamed blue as frozen streams. "Ice Weaver, you seek the frost flame candle." Selena, voice trembling. "My brother, he is dying. I must save him." The Ice Weaver studied Selena with ancient calm. "The candle burns with icy flame, for it reveals truths no other light can show. It is not for salvation, but for revelation. You must ask it the right question." She led Selena inside. The hearth burned with frosted coals. On a silver table lay the frost flame candle, a taper of translucent crystal whose blue flame danced without heat. Selena's heart pounded as the Ice Weaver instructed, "Light the frost flame, but remember, its answers come at a price." With trembling hands, Selena struck flint. The sapphire flame ignited, casting frozen sparks that drifted in midair. "Ice Weaver, ask your question." Selena swallowed. "What will save Finn from his fever?" The candle's flame flared brilliantly, then dimmed. In its glow, Selena saw visions on the walls. A hidden spring beneath Hearthholm's town square, a single moonflower whose petals open only at midnight, an ancient ritual in the old chapel that draws life's warmth from winter. As the visions faded, the frost on the window pane formed the words, "At midnight's hush, beneath moonflower's gleam, pour its dew upon his brow." But Selena noticed a second message, written in delicate frost. "But your own warmth shall wane to starlight's pale." Her breath caught. The candle's icy flame had revealed the cure and foretold her sacrifice. Clutching the candle, Selena thanked the Ice Weaver and fled down the frost steps. She reached Hearthholm as moonlight softened the snow. At the old chapel's ruins, she found the moonflower, white petals unfurling in the silver light, and collected its dew in a small vial. Midnight approached. Selena hurried to Finn's bedside. His fever-flushed face was slick with perspiration. His pulse throbbed like a trapped bird. She whispered the ritual chant and poured the moonflower dew upon his brow. A hush fell. Finn's chest rose slowly, color returning to his cheeks. He stirred, eyes opening to see his sister's face. Relief flooded Selena's heart until she realized her own skin had turned translucent, cold as the candle's flame. Her pulse slowed, her warmth drained. She clasped Finn's hand, voice quivering. "Selena, you're well? Remember me?" Finn nodded, tears in his eyes as Selena's life bled into the midnight air. With her final breath, she blew out the frost flame candle, its icy embers dying with her. The dawn found Finn cradling Selena's still form in the snow-stained chapel, the vial of dew and the blackened stub of the frost flame candle by his side. The villagers found him and mourned. They buried Selena beneath the yew by the frozen well, marking her grave with a single rune. Months passed. Finn, heartbroken yet devoted, placed the stubbed candle atop her tomb each equinox. To his astonishment, the candle's flame reignited in pale blue, burning cold and bright beside her stone. He read the rune and whispered the ritual, moonflower dew gathered at midnight. Each year at equinox hush, the frost flame candle burned anew, preserving Selena's warmth in icy light, healing those afflicted by winter's harshest maladies. Generations later, Hearthholm remembers Selena's sacrifice. On cold nights, villagers light blue candles on their doors, echoes of the frost flame, honoring the sister who gave everything for love. A secret order, the Keepers of Frostflame, tends Selena's tomb, gathering dew from the moonflowers and ensuring the candle never wanes. And in the stillness beneath the yew, if the wind falls silent and the moon is high, one may glimpse an icy flame dancing beside a simple rune-carved stone, reminding all that some lights burn not with heat, but with the cold fire of selfless devotion. Elias Kent, a cartographer of uncanny roads, arrived in Hemlock's Edge on a chill autumn evening, determined to map the Moonshroud Trail. He had heard its legends in a half-burned journal. The path blooms at dusk, then withers at the witching hour. Record each lantern's glow before it dies. At the village inn, he found Mira Lorne, daughter of the blacksmith, whose brother had vanished upon the trail a year before. Over steaming mugs of cider, Elias showed her his blank map. Mira's eyes glowed with equal parts hope and dread. "Mira, if you can chart the trail's turns, you might lead him home." Elias, "I will, but time is short. We must depart before the first lantern fades." At sunset, Elias and Mira set out from the inn, lanterns aloft. The village folk watched from shuttered doorways, offering prayers. The first marker lay 15 paces from the road's edge, a mossy stone carved with a fox's paw. Elias sketched it. Beyond, lantern light danced on birch trunks. The second marker emerged 10 minutes later, a gnarled oak bearing the initials ML. Mira paused, tracing them with trembling fingers, but said nothing. The third marker glowed ahead, a weather-worn milestone etched with a single rune. Elias paused. "Midnight approaches. We must turn back soon." Mira shook her head. "My brother reached the clearing beyond. We must press on." They continued, heartbeats echoing through the quiet forest. The clock in Mira's pocket chimed 11, and the oak tree's shadows thickened into pillars of night. Lanterns flickered, as if a sudden breeze swept through the undergrowth. Elias marked the fourth stone, an arrow carved into ivory bark, at 11:37. Already Mira's breath came in cold clouds. Elias, "We need 2 more markers, then head back." Mira, "My brother found the silver spring ahead." "I know it." Elias hesitated, consulting his watch. It read 11:52. Elias, "We'll never make it back before midnight." Mira's eyes gleamed with resolve. She led him deeper past the 5th marker, a pair of clasped hands carved on a snapping branch. The lanterns dimmed. Elias felt dread coil in his chest. At 11:59, they reached the 6th marker, a stone well rimmed with ivy and etched with the name Rowan Kent. Mira fell to her knees and peered into the well's black mouth. "Mira, this is where he cried for help." Elias turned, only to find the trail behind them dissolved into underbrush. The lantern sputtered and died at the 12th chime. Midnight had come. When the lanterns flickered back to life, Elias and Mira stood in a vast circle of towering pines. No path led back, only the moon's silver glow overhead. Mira sobbed. "He was right here. Where did the trail go?" Elias shook his head, voice tight with fear. "The path vanished. We're trapped until dawn." They ventured between trees, searching for any sign of the markers. The forest seemed to close in, each tree's bark curling into faces that watched them. Whispered voices rose on the wind, echoes of past travelers lost to the moonshroud trail. As hours passed, Mira clutched Elias's arm. "I hear him, Rowan." But the only answer was the creak of branches in their own ragged breaths. At 1:47 a.m., they stumbled upon a clearing aglow with phosphorescent flowers. At its center lay a driftwood raft moored to a mossy stump by silken vines. Mira gasped, recognizing Rowan's crest carved on its prow. She rushed forward. "Mira, Rowan must have crossed the silver pond. We can follow." Elias hesitated, remembering the journal's warning. The pond mirrors the living world, but each crossing steals memory of what was left behind. Mira ignored him and boarded the raft. To Elias's horror, she pushed off, drifting among the glowing lilies. The forest around them dissolved into starlight reflections, and the moon's face bent in the water. Elias called after her, but Mira could not hear. The pond's surface shimmered, and the raft vanished into mist. Elias stared at the empty clearing, heart frozen. Suddenly, a chill breeze stirred the pines. The moon's light dimmed as first pale rays of dawn pierced the treetops. The forest withdrew its secrets. A faint path reappeared under Elias's feet, silvered with dew and strewn with lantern light. The markers returned in reverse order: the ivy well, the clasped hands, the ivory arrow, the fox's paw, guiding Elias back to Greenwood Road. He emerged at the quay as the village clock struck 4. Villagers found him kneeling by the roadside, lanterns still in hand, eyes hollow. When they asked after Mira and Rowan, he only shook his head. They're gone." Elias returned to Everly alone. In his study, he unfolded his tattered map of the Moonshroud Trail. The 6 markers were penciled in, but between them, the line grew jagged, as though torn by longing. He added a final note in trembling script. "The trail blooms at dusk and withers at midnight. Those who follow it seek what once was, but find only the hunger of the forest." He locked the map away in a cedar chest, vowing never to follow the lanterns again. Yet each twilight, he listened for the church clock's 11th chime, and in the hush of dusk, he swore he could still hear Mira's voice on the wind. "Eli, come back." For some paths vanish after midnight, and some hearts never return. Eamon Quill ran the village barbershop, a place of morning gossip and polished mirrors. On a brisk autumn evening, as he swept shorn hair from the floor, the first wisps of fog drifted through the cracked door. He shivered, drawing the shutters closed, but the mist pooled in the street and seeped beneath the threshold. Moments later, the bell above the door tinkled, and a cloaked figure entered. Eamon raised his blade, but the stranger lifted gloved hands in greeting. A cold breath caressed Eamon's cheek as he studied the man's face. Only it was blank, no eyes, nose, or mouth, just a smooth, pale surface. Eamon's heart froze. He reached for his scissors, but the stranger placed a hand on his arm, skin slick as dew, and guided him gently to the chair. The mirror before him fogged, and when it cleared, Eamon saw his own face missing, replaced by that same featureless mask. With a silent scream, he staggered back as the stranger vanished into the mist. Eamon collapsed to the floor, hands trembling at his blank visage, realizing the barber could no longer discern any face at all, his own identity stolen by the thief of faces. News spread at dawn of Eamon's fate. The villagers gathered in the square. eyes hollow beneath cloth wrappings. No one dared approach him, for fear the fog still clung to his hair and might fall upon them in turn. By council decree, a midnight vigil was held. Torches lit, steel blades drawn, and every face washed in oil to repel the mist. Among the guards stood Maris Layton, Amon's once fiancée and the local apothecary's daughter. She refused to cover her face, determined to remain herself no matter the cost. As the sun set, a chorus of prayers rose beneath the church tower. The mist slithered across the heath, clutching lantern light in its smoky fingers. The torches flickered, and Maris felt the fog's cool fingers brush her cheek. She spun, blade raised, but the fog receded as suddenly as it had come, leaving only a single trail of damp footprints leading into the blackened moor. Maris refused to cower. She donned a hooded cloak lined with garlic and drenched in rosemary oil. Armed with Amon's razors, she ventured into the moor at dawn's edge, where the fog lingered like sorrow in the grasses. She followed the footprints to the shattered ruin of Old Morrow's Keep, an abbey abandoned after its monks vanished a century past. The fog swirled thicker here, and Maris heard whispers, voiceless entreaties and marred laughter. She closed her eyes and listened. The voices of the lost, faces the fog had stolen, clamoring for release. With trembling hand, she carved a circle of salt and drew a blade of runic steel. In the abbey's nave, she found eldritch graffiti, runes invoking Vespora, the ancient mist goddess. Under the arch, a stone altar bore dozens of pallid masks, faces the fog had claimed. Maris pressed her forehead to the altar and spoke her own name, binding her spirit to the place. The fog roiled and a form emerged, tall, slender, its face a featureless void of pale mist. The entity, Vespora's avatar, drifted toward Maris, its voice a thousand whispers in her mind. Your face, your fear, I hunger still. Maris raised her razor. Give them back. Her voice rang clear despite the entity's maddening chorus. The avatar extended a misty hand, and the masks on the altar rattled. Each face screamed in silent nightmare. Villagers, monks, travelers. Maris cried out Amon's name, her anguish sharpening her resolve. Not one more! She plunged the razor into the altar's stone base, severing the runic binding. The mass shattered in explosions of pale light. The stolen faces drifted free in spectral form, coalescing into vaporous silhouettes that surged back through the fog toward the village. The entity howled as its power unraveled. Maris turned and ran for the exit, the fog's tendrils writhing behind her like wounded snakes. Maris burst from the abbey into the pre-dawn moor. In the distance, the church bells pealed, the first toll of sunrise. The mist recoiled before the coming light, dispersing in shreds of silver vapor. She raced back to the village. In the square, she found Amon and the other victims, faces restored, features trembling but whole. Villagers wept as they pressed flesh to flesh, marveling at the miracle. Vespora's form seeped from the abbey's stones, now powerless and waning. With the fair of faces returned, the avatar collapsed into a puddle of dew and vanished with the morning breeze. In the days that followed, Maris and Amon recovered, their love deepened by the trial. The masks from the abbey's altar were interred beneath the church floor, consecrated with holy oil. A new tradition arose in Inverleigh. Every dawn, the townsfolk rang the church bell 3 times, once to honor the living, once for the dead, and once to remind Vespora's veil that no face shall ever be taken again. And at dusk, when the mists creep down from the moor, each window bears a bouquet of rosemary and garlic, and every face, pale or bright, remains unruffled by the fog's passing. For in Inverleigh, no one ever forgets their own reflection. The thief of faces may rise with rolling mist, but the light of memory and the courage of the brave will always restore what the fog would steal. Marisol Gray arrived on a frost-bitten afternoon, her breath steaming in the courtyard air. The town council had appointed her caretaker of Hawthorne House, an act of last resort after every previous keeper fled in terror. Armed with gloves, fresh batteries, and skeptical resolve, she unlocked the wrought iron gate and stepped inside. The moment her boot creaked on the threshold, the silence shifted. The front door's ancient hinges sighed as though greeting her. She carried her lantern into the entry hall, its glow revealing faded wallpaper and a grand staircase that curled upward into shadow. On the wall, a dusty frame held a portrait of the original owners, their stern faces set in permanent watchfulness. Marisol set down her suitcase. "I'm here to catalog and protect," she told the silent walls, "no matter what." That first night, Marisol settled into the guest suite on the ground floor. She burned sage, locked the door, and lay awake listening. At midnight, she heard it, footsteps padding on creaking floorboards above, slow, deliberate, then fading. She sat up, heart pounding. "Hello?" she called into the dark. Only the hush answered. She grabbed her lantern and climbed the stairs. On the landing, she found nothing but the cold draft from a broken window. Yet on the polished banister, she saw muddy footprints in her size. Her lantern's tremor cast their shadows across the walls, elongated and shifting as though alive. Marisol cleaned the marks, but at dawn they reappeared exactly as before. Determined to understand, Marisol explored each room by daylight. In the sitting room, the fireplace's mantle bore gouges like fingernail marks. The leather chair, perfectly preserved, still held the imprint of a visitor's shape. On the library shelves, a single volume lay open, its page marked not by a bookmark, but by a child's tear smear. She turned to the walls, running her hand over the faded damask. As she pressed, soft murmurs filled her mind, fragments of conversation. "I never meant to. If she finds out, to promise me you'll stay." Marisol staggered back. The house was speaking, a chorus of memories trapped in plaster and stone. In the attic, she discovered the truth. Behind a rotting floorboard lay a leather-bound journal. Its entries chronicled Hawthorne House's history. 1842. Built by Lord Hawthorne, a collector of curiosities. 1860. Daughter Eliza vanished from a masked ball, never found. 1898. Lord Hawthorne died by his own hand in the library, leaving a bloodstain on the rug. 1923. The last caretaker fled, speaking of children's laughter echoing at night. The final entry, dated last year, read simply, "I can't leave." The house sang my name. Marisol closed the journal, resolve hardening. She realized, to free herself, she must honor each trapped memory. That evening, Marisol set candles along the grand hallway, each representing a memory she intended to acknowledge. Eliza's disappearance. In the ballroom's mirrors, Marisol spoke softly, "Eliza Hawthorne, you are not forgotten." The mirrors rippled as though nodding. Lord Hawthorne's despair. In the library, she laid a fresh rose atop his study desk. "Your sorrow anchored you here. May you find peace." The fireplace crackled, though untouched. The caretaker's flight. In her own room, Marisol placed the old caretaker's key on her bedside table. "Your fear was real. Your story matters." The lock on her door clicked, as though someone turned it back into place. With each ritual, the house sighed in relief. Floorboards softened, walls warmed, the lantern's flame steadied. Yet when Marisol retreated to bed, the footsteps returned, this time accompanied by a child's giggle. At midnight, Marisol rose and followed the laughter up the stairs to the attic. There she found not the playful spirit she expected, but the sorrowful shade of a girl in a lace dress, Eliza's image, translucent and trembling. "Eliza," voice echoing. I'm lost." Marisol knelt. "You are remembered, Eliza. I've spoken your name, heard your story." The specter's tears glistened in the lantern's glow. "Thank you," she whispered, then dissolved into motes of golden dust that drifted through the rafters. The house trembled, and the attic's hatch flew open to the night air. A breeze carried away the dust, and with it the last echo of Eliza's sorrow. When dawn's first light entered Hawthorne House, its rooms felt different, lighter, as if tension had drained. Marisol walked the halls, no muddy prints, no whispered voices, only the soft hum of morning. She reopened the journal. The final entry had changed. Now it read, "I can leave. The house remembers, but no longer binds." Marisol closed the book and smiled. Hawthorne House had freed its memories, and in turn, freed her. Marisol remained as caretaker, opening Hawthorne House to visitors wishing to learn its history. Each guest received a guided tour through the ballroom of vanished dance steps, the library of whispered regrets, and the attic where lost children played. Before departing, each visitor spoke a memory into the house, honoring someone forgotten in their own lives. And every night, the walls listened, remembering the living and the dead alike. Thus, Hawthorne House stood at Raven's Hollow's edge, not a prison of echoes, but a sanctuary of remembrance, where no memory faded unwitnessed, and every visitor left knowing their story too would be honored by the house that remembered. Lucian's study was silent, but for the clock's ticking and the whisper of turning pages. On the desk lay the blank-turned written manuscript. He read. Lucian Drake traced the book's leather cover with trembling fingers. It felt alive, warm as a beating heart. As he read, the candle flickered low, and shadows twisted in the corners of the room. The words felt like memory. Lucian's pulse spiked. He looked down at his cuff, his name embroidered upon it in the university's crest, and realized the book knew him. When he turned the page, the next chapter had appeared. He could not stop himself. He read on. Lucian closed the book and exhaled, yet his eyes fell back upon the next blank page. Where letters formed, he opened it again. As days passed, Lucian watched the book compose itself. Descriptions of his past lectures, the faces of students, the portrait of his late wife hanging in his study. Each time he tried to close it, the virgin page drew his gaze, inscribing itself with uncanny speed. He rose at dawn, haunted by phrases he had never spoken, but now remembered. He recognized the words as thoughts he had never voiced. With dawning horror, Lucian realized the book wrote not only its own story, but shaped his mind, planting memories not his own. Within a fortnight, Lucian had lost track of where his life ended and the book's narrative began. Each morning he awoke reciting lines the manuscript commanded. Each night he scribbled in his own journal, only to find the book had stolen his pen's ink, replacing it with silver script. Desperate, Lucian sought counsel from Dr. Ilara Finch, Everwood's archivist and adept in arcane tomes. In the dusty vault, he showed her the manuscript. Ilara. These marginal notes, see how they shift? They warn of an ending that demands sacrifice. On the edges, scrawled in crimson that pulsed like blood, were words Lucian had never written. Beware the final chapter, it is written in flesh. Ilara traced her fingers over the warning. The book thrives on life. To conclude its tale, it needs a final offering. We must break its narrative loop. They devised a plan to sever the manuscript's power by reading it backward, thus inverting its control. But as they turned to begin, the candle's flame twisted into a shape of a quill, and the page before them filled. They could not stop reading. That night, Lucian and Ilara sat in the candle-dim study. Each opened at the final chapter, blank still, but humming with potential. Ilara began to read the book in reverse, from the last word Lucian had written in his journal to the first line on the title page. As she spoke each word backward, the manuscript shivered. Ninrael fo nichtina ot sagrevo revi range. Her voice quavered, but the letters morphed into sense. Hanar, Esik, ever overgains anything of learning. The text broke apart, letters swirling like motes of dust. Lucian reached to close the cover, but his fingers passed through, as though the book were liquid. As dawn's first gray light crept through the windows, the room trembled. The book's pages raced leaf by leaf, fashioning an ending of its own. To break the cycle, one must offer the final stroke of the pen, the hand that began the tale. Only the reader can end the book. Lucian recognized himself as the reader, and so he did what he must. With trembling hand, he stabbed the manuscript's pages with his fountain pen, spilling his own blood onto the leather cover. The book groaned, the silver script cracking, as if in pain. Elara helped him hold the pen steady. Lucian wrote a single line in his own hand across the final page. Here ends the Book of Lives at the cost of one soul's truth. The moment he set pen down, the manuscript seized his wrist with cool binding light. Pain shot through Lucian's arm, but the book paused its pulse of power. The silver letters on the pages turned black, then smudged. When Lucian awoke, he lay on the study floor. The book closed at his side. A single drip of blood marked the cover. Elara knelt beside him, eyes brimming. Elara, you saved us, but at great price. The book can no longer write itself. Its voice is stilled. Lucian rose unsteadily. He felt empty, as though every memory the book had plucked was now restored to him. He touched his arm. Only a faint scar remained. Years later, Lucian became custodian of the silent volume, the final book of lives, housed in Everwood's vault, chained against midnight's hush. The university's scholars debated whether the manuscript's self-writing power was lost forever or lay dormant, awaiting another reader's blood. Lucian, older and wiser, published his own book. On borders of story and life, the reader's sacrifice. He taught that stories shape us, and that ultimate power demands ultimate price. And each night, when the moon was full, he returned to gaze upon the silent volume, touching its scarred cover and remembering, every tale must end, even the one that writes itself. Isabel Graves was a cartographer of the mind, mapping uncharted spaces of memory and emotion in her journals. By day, she sketched real coastlines. By night, she chronicled dreams, gardens of crystal roses, labyrinths of silver fog, whirlpools of yearning. Yet for months she had drifted through restless nights, haunted by a recurring vision of a ship on silent waters. When the Nova Festival came, a celebration of new moons and new dreams, Isabel followed others to the Blackwater docks. As lanterns swung and laughter rose, the tide of sleep washed over the revelers. Isabel lingered at the quay's edge, pen in hand, as the world blurred and starlight pooled. There, at the very spot she had drawn in her sketchbook, the aurora emerged from the misty ether. Its lanterns burned soft and beckoning. Isabel's heart thundered. The dream ship had come. No plank appeared to bridge reality and dream. Yet with a single step, Isabel found herself on the Aurora's polished deck. The Dreamweaver captain, tall, silver-haired, eyes like molten starlight, greeted her. Captain Merriam, welcome, dream traveler. Our course runs through your heart's hidden seas. Will you sail? Isabel's voice trembled. Yes, I need to find something lost. Marion inclined his head. Then hold fast to your purpose. Beyond the waking shore lie wonders and dangers woven by every sleeping soul. As the dream ship drifted away from reality's edge, the world below vanished in a swirl of moonlit mist. Morning sun never reached the Aurora's deck. Instead, the skies shifted with hues, amber at dawn, violet at dusk, according to the collective dreams of the passengers. Isabel watched islands rise from glassy seas, the Isle of First Love, where cherry blossom lanes reenacted tender confessions. The Island of Regret, its shores lined with broken promises turned to driftwood. She wandered the deck, sketchbook in hand, mapping each ethereal land. Fellow dreamers joined her, an orphan reclaiming childhood joys, a soldier revisiting comrades lost, a widow dancing with echoes of her youth. Each found healing in these realms of remembrance. Yet Isabel sought the final isle spoken of in her recurring dream, the lighthouse of lost tomorrows, where unfulfilled hopes spun like lanterns in the fog. As the aurora neared the lighthouse's waters, storm clouds gathered on the dream sea, a tempest of fear and doubt, conjured by passengers' buried terrors. Waves of memory darkness crashed against the hull. The dreamweavers struggled to guide the ship through narrowing channels of half-formed nightmares, shadows whispering of failure and despair. Isabel felt her own fears swell, the thought that her maps of the mind were meaningless, that her quest was folly. She retreated to the rail, clutching the moonwood baluster. Captain Marion appeared beside her, calm in the maelstrom. "To weather nightmares, one must acknowledge them," he said. "Speak your fear." Isabel closed her eyes. "I fear I've wasted my gift, drawing memories for no one's healing." Her voice cracked. A wave of darkness broke against the deck, then receded. The storm's howl grew softer. Marion smiled. "Honesty guides us. The lighthouse awaits." At the storm's heart lay a solitary granite tower, its beacon unlit. Isabel stepped ashore as other dreamers followed, each clutching tokens of their journey. Inside the spiral stairs of the lighthouse, they found alcoves where floating lanterns hovered, each representing a lost dream. Isabel lit her sketchbook's single midnight blue page with a brass lantern and set it among the others. Her token glowed, releasing a wisp of light that coalesced in the tower's lantern cup. Above, the beacon of lost tomorrows ignited in a radiant flare, casting hope across the dream sea. Each passenger watched their lanterns ascent with renewed purpose. The orphan would become a mentor, the soldier a peacemaker, the widow an artist of joy. Isabel felt her own spirit soar. Her maps of memory would guide others to healing shores. The Aurora's sails caught a gentle breeze, guiding the ship back to the waking world's harbor. At the Blackwater docks, Isabel stepped ashore as dawn's first light crept along real cobbles. The dream ship vanished into mist, leaving only the echo of its bell, soft as a heartbeat. Isabel's sketchbook now bore a new map, a chart of the Isles of Memory and the lighthouse of lost tomorrows, annotated with lessons gleaned in dreams. She closed the book and looked at the sleeping town waking around her. In the years that followed, Isabel published The Atlas of the Mind, a collection of illustrated dream maps that guided readers through their own inner seas. People carried her atlas to clinics and workshops, using it to navigate grief, rekindle hope, and chart new paths forward. On certain clear nights when the moon was full and the world felt on the brink of slumber, villagers near the harbor swore they saw sails of star mist on the horizon and heard the Aurora's soft bell. Isabel would smile, pen in hand, knowing that the dream ship sailed ever onward, bringing the living through dreams to brighter morrows yet unseen. Aurora Vale was a celebrated violinist who had played for kings and commoners alike. Yet in recent months, she had lost her joy for music. Every note she coaxed from her cherished Stradivarius felt hollow, void of emotion. Hearing whispers of the dirge violin's power, she sought the dark instrument, believing that if she could conquer its despairing melody, she might reignite her own passion. On a fog-choked evening, Aurora arrived at Blackwood and Son. The bell above the door tinkled, and an old man emerged from the shadows, the proprietor, Elias Blackwood. Elias, voice low as falling leaves. "So you seek the dirge violin. Beware, It does not play music, it plays hearts. Aurora. I have lost my music. If despair can teach me its depths, I will rise anew. Elias's eyes glinted with sorrow. He unlocked the case. The violin's ebony surface gleamed like starlit water. Aurora's breath caught as she raised the bow. In the muted light of the shop, Aurora drew her bow across the dirge violin strings. A single note emerged, soft, subtly out of tune, like a cry half remembered. Aurora faltered as a wave of anguish washed through her. Memories of loss long buried, her mother's lonely goodbye, a childhood friend's laughter swallowed by time. She continued, each bow stroke weaving a tapestry of sorrow, regrets, unspoken apologies, nights spent weeping beneath satin sheets. Aurora felt the music claim her soul, drawing tears she could not stem. When the final note faded, the shop lay silent. Aurora's hands trembled, her eyes glistened. She looked at Elias. Aurora. It shows me my pain. Elias. Yet that is only the beginning. Night after night, Aurora returned to the shop. Each time she played deeper chords, melodies that summoned darker despair, nocturne of forgotten dreamers, stirring visions of ambitions left to rot, elegy of solitude, conjuring isolation even among crowds, requiem of shattered vows, wrenching confessions of promises broken. With every performance, Aurora felt her own life vanish. Laughter faded, warmth drained from her touch, color bled from her world. The dirge violin revealed despair in all its forms, unhealed wounds, hidden fears, guilt unatoned. Yet she could not stop. She believed that by mastering the violin's lament, she would transmute sorrow into art, only to find herself lost deeper in its abyss. Elias warned her, the dirge violin demands sacrifice. To claim its final melody, you must give it your own soul's light. But Aurora, obsessed, answered only by raising the bow. One storm-racked night, as thunder shook the shop's windows, Aurora played the dirge's ultimate composition. The dirge of dusk fell, a ceaseless melody of despair so profound that the candle flames wept black smoke. Each note cracked open her heart. Hear the cry of every sorrow. Let the night consume the morrow. As she played the final chord, Aurora felt her spirit unravel. The violin's weeping strings sucked away her music, leaving silence so vast it ate the world. When dawn's gray light filtered through the shutters, Aurora lay collapsed at the workbench. The dirge violin rested silently beside her. Elias knelt and touched her brow, cold as marble. Elias, you have played the dirge of Duskfell. Now you stand between despair and oblivion. Aurora, voice a whisper. Have I learned its secret? Elias, yes, that sorrow once embraced can create beauty beyond song, yet at the cost of all else. Aurora sat, hollow-eyed. She had mastered the dirge, but lost her own music forever. Aurora left Raven's Hollow at first light, disappearing into the mist. Some say she wanders the world, playing silence for those who have lost too much. In her stead, Elias locked the dirge violin in its case, recovering the padlock inscribed, "To play the dirge is to play at life's cost. Beware the melody you cannot unhear." And so the violin waits in Blackwood and Son violin makers, its ebony wood gleaming like a midnight tear, ready for the next virtuoso bold enough to summon melodies of despair. The evening Calero arrived, the town was in mid-chant. Marcus Levenhart, Dorothea Wren, Aldrich Greystone. Kayla felt their names echo within her, though she had never known them. She had come seeking her sister, lost years ago in the Vale's mists, but found herself drawn instead to the square's hush. A counselor approached, robes of iron blue. "Newcomer, do you know why we remember only the dead?" Kayla shook her head. I seek only my sister. He studied her with empty gray eyes. Then learn our way, or forget all else. Kayla was guided to the parish house, where she was given a simple chamber and told to report at dawn. That morning she rose to the silent toll. The townsfolk spilled into the square. Each citizen carried a slip of parchment, a single name they must submit before dusk's bell. No one spoke of their own lives. Their lips moved only for the dead. Kayla watched as elderly Mr. Harrow, eyes rimmed red, approached the obelisk and read, "My son, Felix Harrow." A flicker of memory, Felix's laughter, shone in the father's eyes, then faded. Kayla realized the townsfolk reclaimed memories of the dead, even as their own past vanished. She asked the counselor, Maranthula, what becomes of the living's memories? Marin's face tightened. We are bound to remember only what has ceased to breathe. To recall the living is sacrilege. Our burden is to honor the gone. As days passed, Kayla's own memories blurred, her sister's face a shifting haze. She tried to talk of her hopes, her childhood, but found her words lost. Instead, she began to write every memory before dawn, preserving them on scraps of cloth hidden beneath her mattress. One night, Kayla discovered a secret alley behind the chapel, where a handful of townsfolk gathered in hushed tones. Among them were Marin and the blacksmith's wife, Tilda. They formed a circle, sharing names of people still among them. Kayla watched in awe as they breathed life into each other's memories of laughter, sorrow, and hope. Then wept as the assembly dissolved when the vesper bell rang, the obelisk's names reclaiming their tongues. Beneath their tears, Kayla heard a new name on the wind, her sister's. Marin led Kayla to a hidden door in the church crypt. Beyond lay the vault of lost voices, dozens of shelves stacked with jars of whispered memories. Each jar held a soul's recollection of the living, songs, laughter, a mother's lullaby, sealed away to protect the town's law. There are those, said Marin, her voice trembling, who would steal these to remember forever and thus break the balance. She handed Kayla a parchment. It bore one name in Kayla's hand, her sister's. That jar contains your sister's memory of life. If you release it, you become fugitive, doomed to be erased when the bell next tolls. Kayla's heart pounded. I must have her back. Marin's face was sorrowful. Know that every memory freed steals from a dead soul. The more you remember, the more they are forgotten. Kayla waited until the eve of All Souls, the night when the obelisk listed every death ever. Lanterns dotted the square like distant stars. She returned to the vault, jar in trembling hand. She could hear the memory stirring, her sister's laughter as a child, their shared lullaby in the moonlight. Tears blurred her vision. She raised her knife to break the seal, but paused. The jar's glass trembled with the weight of all memories it held. She thought of the dead whose recollections she would consume, and of the living whose lives she would restore. With a cry, she shattered the glass. A wave of sound, laughter, tears, music, roared through the vault, tearing at the seals of every jar. Kayla stumbled back as memories poured into the air like mist. She felt her own past crystallize, her mother's face, her father's handshake, her sister's embrace. Then darkness. When Kayla awoke, she lay in the church nave, sunlight pouring through stained glass. The bell had tolled once at dawn, but the square lay empty. The obelisk stood silent, its names now unreadable. The townsfolk had vanished. Marin emerged, eyes soft. You freed us all, living and dead. The balance is broken, but now you hold the memories for every soul who walks these streets. One by one, the villagers returned, blinking at the sun. They looked to Kayla, confusion and gratitude mingling in their faces. She handed each a scrap of cloth, now imbued with their own forgotten memories. A daughter's smile, a neighbor's kindness, a first friendship. As they read and wept, the town of Evermorn awakened to its own life. Years later, Kayla became the keeper of memory for the newly renamed Dawnrest, formerly Evermorn. She established the Archive of Living Voices, where every citizen's memories, past and future, were recorded in journals and song. The obelisk was moved to the center of a joyous square, its blank stones a reminder not of death, but of memory's power to unite living and dead. No longer did the town remember only the departed. Instead, each dawn, children learned every name in the archive and added their own. And each dusk, villagers gathered to share stories of love, loss, triumph, and hope, ensuring that no memory of the living or the dead ever faded into silence again. Kaylin Odris, a young historian at Laranthia University, had devoted her life to the Iron Arch. She pored over crumbling manuscripts, emperors' decrees, prophets' visions, and merchants' rumors, seeking clues to the gate's purpose. Each text told a fragment, that the gate was bound by a vow of blood, that it led to a realm of living light, that it absorbed the regrets of those who tried to force it open. One moonless night, after discovering a hidden parchment in the university's archives, Kaylin raced to the arch. The parchment's final line glowed faintly in torchlight. Only one who knows no secrets may pass beyond the gate. Her heart pounded with hope and dread. Could she, a lifetime of questions and half-remembered truths, ever stand before the gate with an unburdened heart? Kaylin knew who might help. Prince Jareth, heir to Laranthia's throne, whose courtly life required impeccable discretion. His reputation for honesty, so firm it cost him alliances, made him an unlikely but perfect candidate. She sought audience, presenting both the parchment and her plea. Jareth listened beneath the arch's carved runes. "You ask me to unburden myself," he said softly. "I have no secrets. My life is in plain view. But what of you, scholar? What shadows do you carry?" Kaylin faltered, then confessed. Stolen scrolls, erased records, a guilt she had hidden even from herself. Jareth's gaze was gentle. "We both bear secrets," he said. "Let us bear them both and stand before the gate together." That very night, Kaylin and Jareth ascended the steps to the Iron Arch. Laranthia slumbered below. Torches winked in the palace windows. The gate loomed above, its bronze surface cold and unyielding. With a deep breath, Kaylin spoke her confession aloud. Every hidden theft, every lie to protect her pride. The runes on the arch glowed in response. Jareth followed, bearing his own regrets. The alliances he had sacrificed to keep his word, the friendships severed by duty, the moments of weakness he had concealed. The arch's glow intensified, pooling at their feet like molten metal. They stepped forward, and the gate trembled. With a groan of ancient gears, the iron arch split apart. The twin pillars slid outward, revealing a passage of white brilliance so intense they shielded their eyes. Step by step, they crossed the threshold, leaving behind the city's dark contours and entering a realm of living light, where crystal spires soared into luminescence and rivers of liquid dawn flowed between fields of glowing petals. In this place, voices rose in silent harmony, echoes of all who had once sought the gate. Their regrets were carried away on currents of light, transformed into music that wove through Kaylin and Jareth's hearts. They felt their burdens lift, replaced by a serene clarity. At the end of the pathway stood a single arch of moonstone, inscribed, "All secrets laid bare, all burdens undone. Only then may you return, hearts one." Hand in hand they crossed back, bringing courage and compassion home. The iron arch closed behind them with finality, its runes dimmed, its bronze seal renewed. Kaylin and Jareth descended the steps to Laranthia, hearts light with truth. They shared no details of the light realm, only that their burdened souls were now free. In the years that followed, Laranthia flourished. The arch stood silent once more, but with a new meaning. It was no longer merely a sentinel of secrets, but a testament to honesty's power to unlock wonder. Pilgrims came to the arch on moonless nights, seeking the courage to face their own truths. And though the iron arch never opened again, its silent promise endured, that no secret, no sorrow must forever remain hidden, and that in truth lies the door to unimaginable light. Roland Hartley, a cartographer and natural philosopher, arrived at Whisperwood with equal measures of skepticism and fascination. He sought to chart the forest's curious phenomena, to prove that shadows were mere tricks of light. As dawn broke, Roland set foot on the mossy path, logs arching overhead like cathedral vaults. His compass spun in erratic circles, and already his own shadow stretched unnaturally long across the dew-laced ferns. By midday, Roland noted in his journal, "Shadows here measure twice the bearer's height, movement slightly delayed by several heartbeats." But as dusk approached, he saw his shadow lengthen into a figure nearly twice his size, its arms branching like the forest's knotted boughs. When he raised his lantern, the shadow recoiled into the undergrowth, leaving him momentarily lit by a single star of firefly light. Lost and unsettled, Roland stumbled upon a small clearing lit by phosphorescent fungi. There he found a hut he had not seen on any map. Its sole occupant, a hunched old man named Arbelin, wore clothes patched with moss and bark. Arbelin nodded without surprise. "You chase shadows, scholar. The forest feeds on what we leave behind." Roland pressed him. "Why do they grow? What do they seek?" The hermit's eyes glinted. "Our fears, our unspoken desires, all sown in this earth. Here, shadows root in darkness and feed on secrets untold." He handed Roland a silver mirror. "Hold this to your back at midnight. See what grows in your absence." That night, Roland stood beneath the highest oak, its roots curling like serpents. He held the mirror behind him. At the witching hour, shadows seeped from every trunk and fern, pooling around his feet. In the mirror, he saw not only his own silhouette, but a second, darker form writhing at his heels. Its head bowed, its arms outstretched in silent plea. Roland's breath caught. Within the shadow's twisted shape lay fragments of regret. Words he had never spoken to his late wife. Promises he had broken to secure his career. Moments of vanity he had swept under the rug of ambition. The forest had taken them, grown them into a living thing. He turned the mirror upward, shattered it on a stone, and fled, leaving the shards to glint beneath the moon. As dawn broke, Roland raced through Whisperwood, his feet finding paths he had never marked. The forest grew silent, as though holding its breath. At the entrance, he turned to face the grove, heart pounding. From every tree, the shadows slithered forth, long, trembling forms that converged on him. They did not chase, they merely gathered, pressing close like a tide of nightfall. Roland stood his ground and spoke aloud every hidden regret the forest had shown him. "I am sorry, and I remember. I will carry these truths with me." At his vow, the shadows quivered, then receded into the undergrowth. The forest exhaled, the leaves rustled in relief. Whisperwood had tested him and released him. Roland returned to civilization changed. He published a new kind of map, not of roads and rivers, but of emotional terrain. He taught travelers to carry their regrets in written journals, so that if their shadows tried to grow, they could face them instead of fleeing. As for Whisperwood, Roland sealed its paths on his maps, leaving only a warning. "Beware the forest where shadows grow. They feed on secrets we will not show." Yet on moonless nights, when the wind whispers between the trees, some say the first shadows emerge, stretching, searching, ready to find the truth once more. Celeste Marlowe had not heard her mother's laughter since childhood. 2 years ago, Mrs. Marlowe had fallen ill and passed away before Celeste could say goodbye. Since then, A hollow ache gnawed at her heart. One evening in late autumn, as she hurried home from the market, a single phrase drifted through the reeds. "Celeste, come home." Her breath caught. It was her mother's voice, warm and patient, just as Celeste remembered. The field lay just beyond the last thatched cottages. Heart pounding, she followed the wind's song into Windmere, lantern in hand, determined to find its source. The moment Celeste stepped into Windmere Field, the grasses rose up like silent sentinels. The lantern's glow struck a path through the waving stalks. All around, murmurs rose. "Remember me. Time was kinder then. Stay, stay." Celeste called out, "Mother?" Her voice trembled. The wind carried laughter, then sobs, snatches of conversation she had never heard. She walked deeper, guided by the flickering lantern and the promise of reunion. With every step, the voices grew more distinct. Her mother's lullaby, her father's stern admonition, her own baby cries. At the heart of the field, Celeste found a ring of ancient standing stones, each carved with names worn nearly smooth by time. She recognized her grandmother's name on one pillar, Rosalind Marlowe, 1932 to 1987. Beyond it, a newer name, Eleanor Marlowe, 1958 to 2018. Her mother, Celeste's breath caught. The moment she read the dates, the voices hushed as though holding their breath. Then a single, clear phrase, "Celeste, forgive me." Tears stung her eyes. "Mother," she whispered, "I forgive you." The wind curled around her, warm as an embrace, and the voices rose in a gentle choir. Her family's memories set free at last. Her father's laughter rang once. Her grandmother's lullaby drifted on the breeze. Celeste knelt before the stones. The lantern's glow revealed words carved into the central stone. "Heed the whispers, but guard your heart, for memories long silenced may never depart." She realized the field did not merely channel voices. It bound them to the wind and could bind her too. Celeste felt the memories swirl around her mind, threatening to overwhelm her heart with both joy and sorrow. She pressed a hand to her chest, closing her eyes against the storm of feeling. Voice chorus, "Stay." A chill ran through her. The voices did not want release. They wanted her to stay, to join their murmured echoes forever. Summoning her strength, Celeste stood. "I cannot stay," she said softly, "but I carry you in my heart." She retrieved a small silver locket from her cloak, a gift from her mother, and placed it upon the central stone. "Celeste, carry this and remember that love outlasts even time." The locket glowed faintly and the stones hummed. The voices rose one last time. All voices will be here in every breeze. Then they faded into a single whisper, "Goodbye." The wind died. The lantern's light held steady. Celeste felt the field's pull lessen. With a final glance at the stones, her family's silent monument, she turned toward home as the first light of dawn gilded the horizon. Years passed. Celeste became the custodian of Windmere Field's circle of stones, maintaining the names and carving new ones for those whose voices joined the wind. She held nightly vigils at sunset, lighting lanterns and speaking aloud the litanies of the departed, ensuring their memories rose one last time on the breeze before returning to the earth. Travelers who passed by on quiet evenings might hear a song of whispers and look to see Celeste's lantern bobbing among the reeds. A promise that no voice is ever truly lost, so long as there is a heart to remember, in a field where voices rise with the wind. Violet Drummond was an archivist at Ravens Hollow's Historical Society, devoted to unearthing buried stories and reclaiming lost legacies. When Duskrak's proprietor, Mr. Cleaver, offered her the soul glass for study, Violet leapt at the chance to prove or disprove the legends. Under the society's roof, she set the mirror in a dust-sealed gallery, its glass dark and placid. At dusk, Violet brought her journal and lantern before the soul glass. She broke the hush with a question. "Show me a soul forgotten." Seconds passed. The glass rippled like oil. The lantern's light danced across shapes, first flickers, then full figures. An elderly woman in mourning veils, a soldier in tattered uniform, a babe swathed in linen. Their eyes were empty wells of longing. Violet's breath caught as they drifted toward the surface, mouthless pleas pressed against the silver. She scribbled notes in her journal, her heart pounding. Mirrors show souls unremembered. They seek remembrance. Over the next week, Violet returned nightly. Each session revealed new souls. A cobbler who died alone, a poet erased by scandal, a child lost at sea. One evening, a slender figure in a scholar's robe stepped forward, familiar and impossible. It was her own mentor, Professor Leland Harrow, lost 2 years past in a fire. His eyes glowed with sorrow. As Violet reached out, the mirror's surface flickered. Coach rails of glass shards danced across his face, and he vanished with a silent cry. Violet stumbled back, tears blurring her sight. She realized the mirror was not a safe vessel, but a snare. Yet she could not look away. Her mentor's ghost haunted her dreams, urging her to remember. The Historical Society's director grew concerned by Violet's absences and haunted looks. She protested reclaiming forgotten souls was her duty. With trembling hands, Violet wrote obituaries and memorials for each apparition, entries in town records, poems in the archive, fresh grave markers laid at Ravens Hollow Cemetery. Each tribute dissolved the soul's image in the mirror. The cobbler's figure winked out when his gravestone was raised. The poet's lament ceased when his verses were reprinted in the Gazette. The child's visage faded when a wreath was placed at the dock's memorial. But for Professor Harrow, no official recognition existed. His disappearance remained unsolved, his death undocumented. Determined, Violet dug into Harrow's last days. She uncovered fire warden reports suppressed by the Society's board. Harrow had perished investigating a basement blaze in the very building that now housed the Soul Glass. She pressed the director to acknowledge the cover-up. Reluctantly, the Society issued a formal death certificate and held a memorial service in Harrow's honor. That night, Violet returned to the mirror. Professor Harrow's figure waited. His eyes, once hollow, now shone with quiet relief. As Violet called his name, he smiled, a gesture of thanks, and dissolved into the mist behind the glass. Violet exhaled. The mirror's face stilled, its surface smooth and blank as a new page. Word of Violet's work spread. Familiars of the lost, families, descendants, scholars, sought her out, each bearing stories of ancestors unrecorded or tragedies forgotten. The Soul Glass became a catalyst for remembrance. Community gatherings in the gallery each dusk, where names and stories were spoken aloud. As each soul was named and honored, a new light flickered in the mirror, testament that no one need remain unseen. Yet with every soul released, the mirror grew heavier, its silver frame sagging under unseen weight. Violet wondered, could it ever be emptied? Or was its purpose infinite? One night, as autumn wind rattled the windows, Violet stood alone before the mirror. She whispered into the silence, "Show me the soul most forgotten." The glass stirred, revealing a small, wailing child no one recognized. She was Lucille Evern, born to a pauper family lost to famine. No record of her birth, no gravestone marked her passing. No one in Ravens Hollow spoke her name. Violet's heart clenched. She ran to the church records, too many gaps, then to the cemetery, rows of weathered stones, none bearing Lucille. Trembling, she placed a fresh marker at the graveyard's edge. Here lies Lucille Evern, 1824 to 1824. Never forgotten. She returned to the gallery. The soul glass's surface quivered. Lucille's ghost appeared, eyes bright with wonder, clutching a tiny doll. Violet knelt and took her hand. As Lucille smiled, the mirror glowed, then cleared entirely, reflecting only Violet's own tear-stained face. Years later, Violet, now curator of the Raven's Hollow archive, sealed the soul glass behind plate glass, a plaque beneath it reading, "The mirror that reflects the souls of the forgotten. Speak their names and they shall live. School children bring flowers, descendants bring letters, scholars bring fresh heads full of names. Each dusk, the gallery hosts a remembrance hour. No living voices needed to stir the wind, for the souls remembered speak softly in every drawn breath. And in the stillness, if you attend with reverent heart, you may catch the faintest echo at the edge of your hearing, whispers of gratitude rising like a final benediction. Thank you for remembering me." Thus the soul glass remains, a testament to memory's power, proving that even the most forgotten soul can find a place to be seen, heard, and cherished once more.